Hi, this is Kevin Conroy, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Oh, well, looky what we have here. Welcome to the Joker Cave. Certainly not any jokes around here. What with all the seriousness of putting geeks in a round table about comic books. You're listening to The Pullback After Dark.
Hello and welcome to The Pullback. This is yet again another After Dark, and it is After Dark when we are recording this. Thankfully, Jake and Dane from Punisher Body Count didn't keep me locked in the alleyway of a Dollar General store. But anyway, tonight I have Steve Megatron, hello.
Hello.
And Jeremy Fine, hello.
Hello, good sirs.
Tonight we're going to be talking about the merits or demerits of print and digital comics, reading in print or digital. Everybody has heard me probably say this before. I know Steve has heard it a million times, but me getting full-time into comics is actually all Steve's fault. He told me to read Batman 13, and I haven't gone back since. Of course, I've dropped titles here and there over the last couple of years, but originally when I was picking them up, I was all about print. I needed to have that physical copy because I kept hearing about Comixology.com and their guided view technology and everything else. I'm like, okay, well, that's great if I had a smartphone or an iPad or whatever the hell, that would be fine. I didn't realize that it was also you could use their website to view the comics. I thought it was mobile device only. And over the last, I'd say probably 6 months to a year, I've gone more towards digital. Not because of space, not because of lack of wanting to collect stuff. It's just I find myself that it's easier for me to sit here at my computer and read through their guided view technology, which basically takes you panel by panel. I find it easier for myself to read the story and, get it that way than I do, sitting in my chair and reading a single issue. Or I'll say one thing in the pro column for digital comics. It ain't going to give me carpal tunnel for holding a 104-page trade paperback. I'll tell you that right now. So yeah, no, I've pretty much stopped buying trades at this point because I'll buy the trades, but I'll buy them digitally. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, I'm kind of in a mixed bag here, only because I get it, mixed bag. Unintentional pun. I've always been a print guy, mostly because I love to own the covers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Most of the time, even if an issue is terrible, or if I have no intention on opening the cover, I will buy it for the cover. That being said, I also would prefer trade paperbacks over buying them all individually. Not only do you get the covers inside most of the time, but you also get the collective of the story arc. And for somebody that's owned and bought many of them over the years and then had to sell them and then trying to reclaim them, that's more so the direction I would go. But at the same time, you have to store them.
Yeah.
And when you have limited storage capacity and, your house is filled with crap that you really don't need, but you want. Then, like, for instance, my predicament is I have 2 of the comic boxes. They're, I don't know, they hold, like, I don't know how many comics, but it's one of the shorter box versions.
Yeah, it's a short box is what it is. Yeah.
I have 2 of them. So that being said, I also prefer to read some digitally because not only do you get it as soon as it comes out, there's the instant gratification of reading it when it's new and not having to go anywhere. but it's also not been bent. The pictures as it was originally intended. It's just a lot easier. Plus, you don't have to worry about if they run out and having to find the issue. So, I mean,
Right.
there's plus and minuses to both. I myself, I mostly prefer print.
Yeah, I will say, as far as reading the comics, as far as reading the stories, as I already mentioned, I know I'm in the habit of repeating myself, but, hey, that's just the way I roll. I prefer reading the story on Comixology, but I've found through the last 6 months or so doing the pull bag that I kind of do need either the single issues or the trade to actually sit here and go through versus trying, because if I went through every comic episode or every episode that we have here in the pull bag panel by panel, each podcast, and I know I've had a number of these recently, each podcast would end up being 2.5 to 4 hours. We have yet to hit the 4-hour mark here in the pull bag. So I think the longest one was with me and Joe Reed doing one of the TMNT volumes. It was like 3 hours and 30 minutes. But it honestly just depends, because, when I do the coverage here in the pull bag, if I have to do it via Comixology, specifically that episode with Joe, that was, we would look at a few panels and then we would go off and have a discussion and, come to assumptions and everything else. So yeah, I mean, I guess technically I haven't stopped buying trades. I buy trades for review here in the show. I don't buy the trades to read them anymore, is kind of where I didn't really mention earlier. What about you, Jeremy? Print or digital?
Well, this is going back years. I mean, you've seen Guardians of the Galaxies, and the collector has nothing on me. I am the collector. I would get print for a couple reasons, and we talked about variant covers a few months ago. But when it comes to print, unfortunately, unless you're really taking good care of your comics, the pages fade. I've had comics from the 80s, and even though I put them in the Mylar bags and the backboard, you really have to preserve them and really take good care of them, climate control and so on and so forth. And if you don't, the pages go from white to yellow and they start to break apart. So I do recall back in 2003 that there were several websites that, before, of course, we had tablets, that were going to attempt to do, turning the pages and download comic books. Now, these sites, I don't remember. I think Marvel was trying to create a separate website and just have a few issues at a time, because it was always a big deal. And then finally, iTunes came along, and we have the tablets, and now there's an app for everything. I think the pros about digital is about the convenience of me not worrying about the covers, because as much as I love the covers and as much as I like to print them and put them on my wall because it just makes my wall look, express myself, I'm not interested so much as collecting for, the value, for the nostalgia purposes. But at the end of the day, I have now too much clutter. And the second problem is, if I'm going to review comics, and like for now, Howard the Duck, they don't seem to have the trades for Howard for the 70s. I have not seen them. And the comics that are out there are a pretty penny. Comixology, what I like is that after Guardians of the Galaxy came out and Howard the Duck was in that cameo, all of a sudden, all the 1970 comics came out on Comixology. So I was able to pick them all up at a reasonable price, let alone trying to go on eBay and pay $20 just for issue number 1. So that's the pro and con right there. But to read the print, unfortunately, I am starting to get nearsighted. So what I like about the digital print with my tablet, I'm able to make the print larger, and I'm able to expand on the print. And I'm also able to manipulate Comixology and adjust the brightness, which is a lot easier than those lights that you put over the comics or even my lamp. So for me, for the consolidation purposes, to put the stuff in the cloud, as I said, to get comics that I need right away. And to go to a comic book store, unfortunately, as I said, I live in the middle of nowhere. It's about an hour and a half at times to get to my local comic book store. So with all those things, yeah, I think that digital is just the way of the future.
Hmm. Now, I will say, I just did a search and they don't have it. I'm really surprised that they don't, but there's a website that I got. See, people may or may not know this. While it is true that I didn't get into comics full time until October of 2012, from about mid 2007 up until now, I had been listening to a podcast called Earth2.net, the show, over on www.earth-2.net. And Michael Sims does these previews episodes, and I'm sure every comic podcast does them. But the coolest thing about his show is actually somehow sponsored by InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com. I will say that while I do agree that we do need to support our local comic shops, and I have over the last 2.5 years, the one shop that I go to, I went to In Stock Trades recently, last month. If you spend $50, they give you free shipping, and I mean, for $50, I got the 2 Dark Cybertron Transformers IDW trades, collecting that storyline. I got 3 volumes of The Chew from John Layman, and I got Batman Beyond, Batgirl Beyond trade paperback, all for $50. I mean, InStockTrades.com is the best place for trade paperbacks. It's the only place I will ever tell anyone to go if you want physical trade paperbacks, because they have these things anywhere from 10 to over 40% off. And it's amazing what you can get for the money. It really, really is. That being said, Comixology is no slouch. I mean, you can get a trade on there for anywhere from $9.99 to $19.99, so it's not that. It just depends on what it is. As far as the collectability, as far as collecting the covers, the way I collect comic covers is as soon as Steve makes episode art for the podcast. And I'm not sitting here stroking his ego. I'm just saying, like, that's the way, or, I just keep the image from, like, every week, whether it's Newsarama, whether it's comicbookresources.com, whether it's craveonline.com, whether it's comicvine.com, everybody puts out previews of whatever's coming out that week or that, for that month. So, like, this coming week is August 27th, so there's going to be a preview for Batman Beyond Universe number 13. There's going to be a preview for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, number 3. So, I'll get the covers from that, or I get the covers from solicits. And I don't mind just having an image of the covers. I've never really had I honestly think there's only been 3 covers that I can really think of that I would want blown up and put on my wall, but I would want them as one giant image, and that's Batgirl 23, 24, and 26. It was the Batgirl Wanted arc from the New 52 Batgirl, because Alex Gardner is one of the best cover artists, especially when it comes to that series. What else do we want to say about digital versus print, Steve?
Well, for instance, what would be something that would sway you one way or the other towards it? Because, like, for me, the only thing enticing about print is you're generally paying the same price.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm going to pay the same price, I would rather own it and have that physical copy, only for the fact that, not saying it'll happen, but the website could go away. and you lose your entire archive. Although there are some instances now from some publishers that they will actually let you download the CBR or PDF file of the actual comic.
Yeah.
After you've paid for it.
Yeah. I honestly wish Marvel, IDW, DC Comics would jump on this bandwagon. I know Image Comics does it because on Comixology.com, under my backups, I have backups for Satellite Sam #1 and Cowl #1 through 3 from Image. I honestly wish more publishers would do this. I really do.
I think there are apps, if I understand this correctly, through the App Store. IDW has a separate app. Marvel has a separate app. I mean, I got scared, too, that Comixology was going to go away. I've heard where Amazon was going to buy them out. I got a little confused because originally with Comixology, and it kept getting bad reviews, that you're supposed to buy it through the app. Now you have to go through the website. It got a little clustered. And in all honesty, I don't really know who's in charge, because when there were times when my password wasn't going through to Comixology, or there were certain issues that I purchased that weren't in the cloud anymore and all had to get fixed, that's what, because I so far spent over $100 worth of comics I wanted to get, let alone with all the Howard the Ducks and DC New 52s. So unless I definitely can say with a straight face that the publishers are having separate apps and you can merge what you bought from said publisher, I'm okay with that. I don't think who's going to go away the quickest. I think that we're in a digital age, so as I said, the only thing that I keep saying, and not to be repetitious, is just that if there's a comic I need and I know it's not going to be available at the comic book store, and if it is at the comic book store, I don't know if it's going to be a reprint, if it's going to be part of a trade, or it's going to be behind the counter where it was the original issue worth $100, and that's the problem. So, I mean, I think what I'm finding, though, are more comic book stores, because they can't afford the rent, and they're worried about the digital age. They're the ones that are going first. So I'm sure within a year or two, this will probably get smoothed out anyway. But I think for a lot of people that have tablets and don't want to put all their eggs in one basket, research the apps for each publisher if it makes you feel better, and not just worry about Comixology. Because, as I said, this way, unless IDW goes belly up, which I doubt it will.
No, they're doing too many good things.
Yeah, it's not, I don't see IDW going the way of the dodo, and people would riot before that happens. It's not like another, publisher that embezzled the money. No, so I would say I am not going to be so much as paranoid on that factor. I misprint, but as I said, what the advantages are is just making, as I said before, making the print bigger for the nearsighted, and of course, with the panels, because some of them, they are motion in a way. The bubbles will come and go. It's nice little incentives.
I think for me, it's more so that, and you're right, DC and Marvel do have their own apps. The coolest thing about Marvel is, though, if you buy, I believe it's pretty much any Marvel comic book, they actually give you a code inside whatever book that is. Like, I bought the first 2 issues of Figment, the 5-issue miniseries based on the Disney World dragon character Figment. I bought those at my shop for $2.99, $3.99, whatever it is, and they gave me, Marvel gives you a free code to put into their app, and the greatest thing about it is, once you connect your Comixology and Marvel.com accounts, you can have it right there on Comixology. So Marvel, honestly, is ahead of the game. I do not know, and
DC does the same thing.
They do the same thing.
Yeah, all those apps are done through like the Comixology type setup.
Okay. Because I wasn't sure. Because I just get, once I subscribe to something like Batman Beyond 2.0 or He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, once I subscribed on Comixology, that was that. Um, so, I mean, I guess it depends on how you like to read your comics. Like I said, for me to be, I don't know, I'm in my old age. I lose track of stuff physically, as far as, like I said, sitting in my. I mean, there were times where I was reading the Dark Cybertron books, the single issues, and I would. It's not because of the content of the story. It's just because I was tired. But I would like literally fall asleep holding that book, and that was just a single issue. I remember last year when we did the first annual Punisher month in November. I was holding, was it Welcome Back Frank? Yeah. I was holding Welcome Back Frank. Next thing you know, my head's knocked over on my shoulder and the book is on the floor in front of my feet, because I just can't sit in my chair and read physical comics anymore. I just can't do it.
Yeah, that's a problem if I'm falling asleep with the iPad and it falls on my face, which has happened a couple of times. Yeah, I mean, you know, I miss the trade. I mean, I have trades. You know, it's just that trades. I don't know what it is though with the trades, because the trades aren't what they used to be in the 80s and 90s. Everything seems to, which is not a bad thing. I mean, everything seems to be a little bit more hardcover in a way, but I really like the soft cover trades that I used to have, and you know, like some of the big hardcover trades that I still have, like for Tales from the Crypt, and even, you know, like now for TMNT. But yeah, I mean, there are always going to be pros and cons. I think it's just because it goes back to what we've said. We grew up in the 70s and 80s. So it's for us a nostalgia process. I mean, the biggest thing that I'm always going to miss, though, in comics are still the ads. Especially in the 80s. I'm sure you remember those ads where it's like, call Jenny if you want to own this prize and sell such and such, you know?
No.
I know.
That's the one thing that I loved. That's the one thing that made me go towards digital more than print, is no ads. Because holy crap, you know, I'll sit here and I'll read a single issue of, and I can't say IDW because IDW doesn't do this, but a DC or a Marvel book. Marvel, when I read the Iron Man 3 Prelude 2-issue comic series, or when I read the first 2 issues of the current Punisher series that Marvel is doing. Anytime that I understand these companies need to sell advertising space and they need to, you know, make the money off the ads and whatever else. But I'm sorry, if you write and illustrate a story in a comic book, and every 6 pages there's an ad that interrupts that story, it has always irked me. I've mentioned it several times in the 2-year history of the Pull Bag. There are times, I think, in the Superior Spider-Man reviews with JT and I, where I remember the first time I did one of those reviews with JT, I went on like a 5 or 10 minute rant about ads, because it just interrupts the story. Hence why I went more towards trades, and now why I'm sticking with digital, because no ads.
Yeah, I think it's just because there's always going to be nostalgia purposes, but you know, the future is not that bad, and it's not that big of a deal. And for me at this point, I miss my old comics in a way. I miss picking up the Mylar bags, the backboards, the boxes. That was great, but everything. Convenience. I mean, to put 1,000 comics on my iPad, you know, and then a trade. And you know what? Also, Comixology, I think we discussed this. They seem to have a lot of great deals for 2 or 3 days. I don't know if it's because, you know, the new Transformers movie came out, or Guardians of the Galaxy, or whatever, but they do a lot of 20 to 50% off, especially with the trades. I'm sure, as I said, the other apps must do it as well. But that's also and also what I love is the subscription service, because for Harley Quinn I decided to experiment with the subscription service, and you know what, it works for me too. You have it through the PayPal, and the day the comic comes out, you actually get it. You get it a few hours. It's already being downloaded onto my iPad. I say about 12:01 a.m. Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning. So that's not too bad at all.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing I absolutely love about Comixology and the other digital apps, because I remember one recording again with Joe Reed for the Turtles stuff we do for my DW. I was like, yeah, so we're recording this on Tuesday night, and by midnight tomorrow morning, 1 a.m., I'll have the next issue. He's like, oh, I hate you. Because, you had to wait to go to the actual shop. And I love that. I mean, every Saturday morning, every Friday night going into Saturday morning, I'm either watching TV waiting for midnight 1 a.m. to roll around, and I'll come out here on my computer, I'll check my books, and hey, there's the next new issue of Batman Beyond 2.0, and I'll read it right then and there. And then I'll go back and, later that morning read it again and write a review or whatever else. But yeah, I love the whole thing of as soon as it's available, period, end of story. You don't have to wait for a shop to open up in the morning. That's what I love about the convenience of Comixology. So we actually did get an email a few months ago when I brought this topic up on an Altered Geek episode, I guess. It's from our buddy Scanner51. He had heard me mention the subject paper comics versus digital comics. He wants to start off by saying that I do digital comics. I used to read paper comics, but when I got a Galaxy S2 phone, I made the switch over to digital full time. I have 2 Google Nexus tablets, and I have no intention of going back. I switched based on convenience and storage. I have no room for just, say, the 103 issues of the 06 run of Superman Batman. Now, I still buy paper comics, but for a collecting purposes only. To get them signed, I have an extensive signed DC comic collection on my wall. I also buy DC female-centric comic covers for my daughter's room. I do not believe there is a quote-unquote war between paper and digital. I'm basing that on pricing alone. A $2.99 paper on Wednesday costs $2.99 at the DC app on Wednesday as well. Now, the main argument I hear about digital anything is the ownership of products, that you don't own them and they're almost kind of leasing them. If the servers or cloud go down, you're fucked out of your stuff. That can be true. Some months ago, Comixology lost $400 worth of books. Now, I got them all back in about 4 days, but still, so I came up with a way to solve this problem. I bought a Gen 2 Google Nexus, wiped my Gen 1 clean and loaded the readers back on, and downloaded every book I ever bought from Kindle, Nook, Google, and so far 70% of all my comics I now have hard copies of everything, so I own them outright. There is no war. Both ways have their ups and downs. Paper, you get to fill bookshelves and display. That is one thing I miss. Digital, everything on multiple devices, ready for you to push or a swipe of a finger. The future is here, and I don't see the past leaving just yet. There will always be a market for paper. Gotta fill up my walls somehow. Gentlemen, fantastic podcast, fantastic network, loyal listeners, Scanner51 and your old daughter. Thank you so much, Scanner51, for the email. Yeah, I mean, he is right. There really is no war. I really don't see Marvel, DC, IDW, Image, Dark Horse. I really don't see them not making paper comics anymore. I really don't. And, with the what I mentioned earlier about the DC, when I asked about the DC Comics app, it's great that DC Comics has their app and it is able to connect to Comixology. DC still isn't doing what Marvel's doing. They're not offering you a free digital code. Now, I do know at certain points in the last 2 years, DC has done like specialty books.
Or they'll do 99-cent comics.
No. What I mean is, there was... Remember when Batman 25 came out? It was that black cover?
Yeah.
There was like 7 different versions of that one comic. One of those versions was $1 more than the original regular price comic. It was $1 more because they gave you a digital code. That to me is asinine, I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I have to agree because I'm sorry, there's no reason why they can't sell it for the same price and give you the
Mm-hmm.
code. You've already bought it, and it's not like
And,
it costs them really anything other than maybe the bandwidth to begin with.
mm,
Um, on the aspect of um, just downloading them. I mean, you've paid your hard-earned money. I mean, to honestly, it kind of pisses me off how much they cost to begin with. Um, just because I mean, it's just you're falling on harder times, and it's just
mm-hmm.
and for how many different comics that come out per line, it's to the point where you have to whittle them down to what's your favorite and then leave it at that because they cost so
Mm-hmm.
much. I mean, that's an entirely different discussion. But if you're going to not give the digital code, there's no reason why the comic can't be cheaper.
I mean, okay, take Amazing Spider-Man, the current run of Amazing Spider-Man, the new run that restarted, whatever else. I don't know what number they're up to at this point, but take whatever the current issue is. Let's say Amazing Spider-Man number 6. Let's say it's $3.99, so it's $4. If you go into a shop, most shops will offer you a discount. So my shop, $3.99, 15% would be about $3.55 plus tax. So let's say maybe 364, 370, something like that. So if I pay $3.70 for Amazing Spider-Man number 6, bring it home, get the code, put it on the Marvel app, and then it automatically syncs to my to Comixology, or the Marvel.com website. It automatically syncs to Comixology. Bing, bam, boom. And sure, I still have the print issue if I want to look at the art. But I really wish DC would start doing this and just keep it at the $3.99 price. There's no reason. I mean, unless they're going to do something like they've done in the past before, where it's a special issue and it's more pages. It's not just your standard 40 page. Let's say it's a 64 or a 96 page comic. They'll start charging $4.99, $5.99, sometimes $6, $7.99. I mean, so the comic shops, most of them have discounts, and that's good if you're wanting paper. And so you're technically not really paying full price, but honestly, I'd rather just sit at home and pay full price on Comixology for the convenience. I mean, when I first started buying comics, my comics budget per month between single issues and trades was about $150, $160 a month. Now it's maybe 50, $60 every 3 months for trades. So like I just bought a bunch of trades now. The next time I buy trades probably won't be till November, December, maybe January. My monthly comics budget on Comixology with the subscriptions I have probably is like 50 or $60. So I'm, you know, every 3 months I'm paying the same thing, but in between that 3 month period, it's like I'm only paying $50 or $60 every month instead of $100 and something every month. And like Steve said, it does come down to choice and what you absolutely want to like. I just discontinued my Grayson subscription. I read the first 2 issues of Grayson. Don't get me wrong, I do love the character. I don't like the direction that they're taking him in with DC right now. I wish he would have stayed in Chicago when it would have been a lot better, at least for me personally. But I just, after reading the first 2 issues of Grayson, I like the first issue. I like the way it's being written, but I have interests elsewhere than seeing Dick Grayson, the Nick Fury of the DC universe. So yeah, I mean, because we can't buy everything, so it does come down to choice. I mean, I'll give stuff, a 1 issue shot, and if it impresses me, fine. That's all well and good. I can tell people right now, coming up in October, I believe, maybe October, or yeah, it'll probably be late October. There might be an issue or a episode of the Pullback where JT and I do a look at a couple of new number ones. We're gonna look at Arkham Manor and Gotham Academy, which is coming out. Are we gonna do full coverage after that? Who knows? Probably not, with everything else I have planned. Um, but yeah, I mean, digital and print. It's currently they're kind of coexisting, and you just have to pick what you really want to do. I mean, if you prefer reading them in print and having that having that comic in your hand, that's great. If you prefer the convenience of digital, that's great too. I'm telling you, ever since I found Comixology's guided view technology, I will never actually read a comic story again in print because of the guided view and how cool it is and how interesting, and it engages you to pull you into the story.
I think it's also buyer's remorse too, as you just mentioned, Mike. Because here's the thing, I could get myself into, and there have been a couple comic books that I picked up over the years, and you know, I have 4 or 5 issues, and then I'll get issue number 6, and I'm like, why did I get that? And I may have a dozen, and I can't sell them. I mean, because nobody wants to buy used comics because everything seems to be reprint. So that's my thing with digital. But the only other thing I just wanted to bring out digital, one of the biggest cons, I think, is when you try to download a comic, and if you have bad internet connection, it could take forever. I mean, sometimes for me, when I was downloading comics from Comixology, and I want something at 10 o'clock at night, it took forever. Next morning, it was fine. But I also think the final thing that I like is that Comixology will show you, just like with Netflix or, like any digital site, like what was just added. And I think that if it's 10, 11 o'clock at night and you can't wait and you want that just added, and they have a lot of free comics too. I mean, there's free comic book day, but Comixology is starting to do that as well. Like, it seems like every day seems to be free comic book day with a certain titles. To me, that's also a good pro.
Yeah, I mean, Comixology has. I'm looking at it here. Recommended freebies. There's at least 60 right now.
Power Rangers.
No, I don't know. I'm not talking about free comic book day. I'm just talking about in general. They do free comics all the time.
Oh no, the Power Rangers now is free.
Right, but what I'm saying is that they do. They also do, just outside of the free comic book day, stuff. They also have thousands of actual free comics. Like, I'm looking at Captain America: The First Avenger #1, First Vengeance, and that's free. Came out a couple of years ago for the first movie. And that's the other thing I love about Comixology. I don't know how many pages a lot of these are. Well, let me see. It doesn't say off the top of my head, I don't think. 13-page comic for the second issue. Same page count, 13 pages, 99 cents. That's not bad. But the Batman Beyond 2.0 from DC. It's probably 13. Actually, no, that's, I think, 23 pages. 99 cents every week. So that is a damn good deal in my opinion. Steve, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm still, like, I'm kind of one of those guys that's kind of on the fence. It kind of depends. Like, like I said, I'd rather read it in print.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, Jeremy, the only downside is who wants to buy used comics? Like, the only reason I've ever picked them up used is because they're cheap. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
They're not the cover price. They're usually cheaper than the regular price, unless it's something that a comic shop purposely creates the demand for and causes them to go up in price. For instance, I sold an entire Transformers Generation 1 Marvel Comics collection 10 years ago. And they have a couple of the issues selling for $50. Nobody's bought them yet. They're still the same issues I sold them 10 years ago. But they want $50 for them, which is why they'll never sell. Whereas if I go to a different kind of comic shop, there's another one that's close by me too that they'll sell them for half the price of whatever the cover was, because they don't pay anybody jack shit for them. So I mean, that's the only instance where I find it feasible for me to do that. However, you know, if you're planning on keeping them forever, it's great to buy them, like to own. But if you're one of those, I mean, if you're one of those people that, you know, you don't want the space, and you don't want to have to, you know, even if you pick them up late, you don't want to have to pay more than cover price. Then the digital kind of works out better, because they also put sales on those periodically.
Now, I will say, as far as storage, as far as display features, there is something that actually my buddy Up to Bottom has pointed out to me. It's Ultra Pro 7.125 by 10.5 top loaders comic books. They're top loading. It's kind of like the hard plastic cases for baseball and basketball cards, except it's for a comic book. So if you want to display your comics not just in the standard bag and board, if you want to, you know, display them like an actual framed picture without actually having to spend the money to buy an actual frame for it, these things are really, really cool. On Amazon, they're $20 for, I think it's, it's $20 for 10 of them. So it's not too bad. You know, I will say, you know, for art's sake and kind of a last thing, you know, if you just want to look at the art after you've read the story, print issues are fine. For me, just reading the story, digital is my way. As far as collecting the stuff, honestly, with almost everything nowadays, I've lost the collection bug kind of thing. I just really have. I don't know what it is about it, but yeah, digital and print. It's going to be an interesting next couple of few years to see how it all goes down. If you guys have any comments about this, post them on the website on this episode post, or you can email us feedback@geekcastradio.com. Put in the subject line the pull bag. If you have anything else, you could send us voicemails, 502-526-5821. Where can they find you on Twitter, Jeremy?
Hunnick Outskirt.
No one wants to look under that.
Well,
Steve, where can they find you on Twitter?
At SCP-21.
And I'm, of course, at TF2 and Mike. You can also follow at Geekcast Radio for all the other network updates. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Pull Bag. There's been a slight change for the schedule coming up. I had said in a previous episode, I think it was the Robots in Disguise Volume 5 discussion with Lady Rick. September is going to be a pretty full month because we've got the Utrom Empire for TMNT. We've got DC Universe versus Masters of the Universe. We've got more TMNT coverage. I'm going to try to get Dark Cybertron done from IDW. More TMNT coverage. And then the third week of September, going through the first week of October, we're going to have 2, 4, we're going to have 5 different countdown episodes on various subjects and topics. So that's kind of what's going on for the rest of upcoming here in September and going into the first week of October. I will also say that the middle week in October is going to be hopefully Ryan the Uneven Flow and I talking about Gotham Central. We're going to be doing that. Potentially Nightwing, The Ties That Bind, and Huntress. And then possibly the Future's End event this year. And then episode 99 is probably going to be Steve and I talking about 10,000 Clowns and Batgirl Beyond. So that's what's coming up for September and October. In October, in the 5th week of October, the Pullback is going to have its 100th numbered episode. So if you guys have any ideas for the 100th episode of the podcast, shoot me an email, let me know, tf2mike@gmail.com, or as I said earlier, you can send email to feedback@geekcastradio.com, put in the subject line the Pullback 100th episode. I think that's going to do it for now. I am TF2 and Mike with
Steve Megatron Phillips.
Jeremy Hunnick Outcast Fine.
Thank you for listening. Make your great escape into comics. We will catch you next time.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pullback, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.